Like two different kind of styles of passing, isn't it? We've all seen it. You know, the more advanced player coming in cautiously, looking to control grips in that inside line and start steering like this. Great, that looks cool. There's a distinct difference between that and and then you get your back taken and you get armbarred or heel hooked or whatever it is. One of them's the Ashton Kutcher methodology of passing guard, and one of them is the Grapplers Academy.
It's got to be a couple of months you mentioned it.
It is. I thought I'd bring it back in just for a bit of a laugh. But let you decide which one's which. The first pass was the Ashton Kutcher passing system or the TGA passing system. You guys decide.
Yeah.
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of the Grapplers Academy. We're back today with some more concepts and fundamental concepts on guard passing, and we're going to be looking today a little bit more in detail about making that first point of contact, how to make your entries and how to start setting up your preferred passing system.
Yeah, like everyone's going to have their preferred way of passing the guard and sort of engaging. Like before we were recording, Bon was going through his preferred controls, and my controls do differ, but there's a lot of crossover there as well, and it's all to do with not overcommitting, but then also in the same light, if you've got a tripod and they've pulled guard and you don't want to have them getting back to their feet, it's maintaining the right amount of pressure where they can't get back to their feet as easily, but also not overcommitting your pressure so you're not putting yourself in any danger of sweeps, leg entanglements, or whatever's available to the bottom player.
Yeah, like we've said loads of times before, you know, jiu-jitsu is mostly about either creating space to escape and frame if you're on the defensive side of things, and taking space away from your opponent if you're looking to attack. Generally, it's a good rule of thumb to look at it. The other rule of thumb as well is not overexposing yourself and overcommitting on something where you're going to make it easy for your opponent to sweep. If we're overexposing limbs, you know, if we're in a closed guard position, you're opening yourself up for arm bars, triangles, this sort of thing, back takes with arm drags. And the same applies when we're making that first point of engagement. And I don't know, quite often see that less experienced players, when they're trying to make that first point of contact, will kind of rush into an engagement with limbs overexposed, usually arms, and usually with completely straight legs, and putting themselves in a bad point of balance.
Yeah.
So the first real thing that you should be thinking about doing when you're looking to engage from standing, particularly if your opponent's playing like an open guard or you just decided to pull guard and play from there, is firstly like making sure that you've got good balance and coming in with good posture. We don't want to be kind of stood completely upright and overexposing our limbs here. So basically 80% of my weight is over the front of my toes. If anybody's ever deadlifted and you do it with the bar right in front of you, you're guaranteed to start tipping forward. So we don't want to come in and start engaging like this and reaching out, because we're going to get arm drags and brought to the floor pretty easy. So the first real thing that you want to do, if we want to avoid a leg entanglement, if we know our opponent's good at a leg entanglement, yes, we want to stay back and away, but we can do that by lowering our weight and getting our hips back and having a much more even point of a base of contact there with the floor. So even if I do start to reach, if size starts to do an arm drag, I've got a little bit of my weight back and I can start to find that balance there. So we don't want to overcommit on anything. And then when we're looking at which bits of the body we're looking to control when we come in, we've got a couple of different options. Like the ankles are right there. We can start making control on the ankle and starting to sitting back if this is our preferred passing style. The one that I like to do as well, we were talking about this a little bit before we started recording, is keeping that base back and staying tight in as we come for a collar control, controlling the wrist as well. And we're going to talk a little bit more in depth as well in a minute about if we're looking at leg entanglements as an option. If we know that the player on the bottom is somebody who likes to play for leg locks, is controlling that inside line, and making sure that you're safe from that point of view as well. It's also applicable to the pass that I'm going to show as well at the end, where we're going for a knee slice. So let's talk a little bit more about that now with the inside leg position. So what we mean by that, I suppose, is when we're, if we're coming in from an inside leg control position, if Sai's winning the battle on this one, his legs are inside mine, which means he can start to make his point of contact and set up elevations to bring me into footlocks, bring my foot into his hip or into his shoulder and start attacking that way. So as I'm coming in, one of the first battles is, if you just spin around that way so the camera can see a bit better, is going to be making sure that I bring my leg on the inside as opposed to being on the outside of the shin, which is going to be in his advantage. And we're doing this in the same time that we're thinking about balancing with the base, making those points of contact as we're coming in, and making it difficult for him to start framing up and coming back. So we've always got at least 2 points of contact with our opponent as we're coming in, and we're making sure that we're always offsetting the balance as well there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like something what I like to like call micro battles, because it's stuff that's not necessarily the flashy highlight reel type stuff, but it's effective stuff. So one thing you were doing really well there, and I think it's hard to see on the camera, is when you are on the back of my head, you're compressing me down, which takes away the ability for Bond to get underneath me as easy. So I've got control of his hips here through controlling the spine. And like with Bond, like in this wrist control, I've got the preferred grip here of controlling the knees as well as being here or pushing the head away. Because now as Bond starts moving around, I'm limiting his ability to move as freely. And whichever way you do it, provided that you can control your opponent's mobility and ability to move around freely, which is the same thing, you're going to win that micro battle. And just like that inside centre line, you're winning the micro battle there to get to the next stage, which is into your preferred guard, which you're going to work to pass.
So the other thing with using those collar ties as well, it's got a good carryover into a lot of different things. As I was saying, when I'm coming in there, I'm not only just looking to make that balance and start compressing down as well. If we're starting to use the wrist control or even on the knees as well, the things that I'm looking to do when I'm coming in on that is start to take my opponent over to the side that I want to pass on. So I'm going to do all these things simultaneously as I'm coming in. I'm making those points of control, whether that's the wrist or the knee, and I'm stepping in, but I'm also, as you can see, starting to off-balance my opponent this way now as well. So when I start passing to that knee slice, it's a lot easier for me to go in that direction because I've already started taking him there. If I start trying to initiate that with just that downward force, even though there's the compression, if I start coming across, he's already still up and we've got back takes there, it's going to be a lot easier for him to take advantage of that position and come up on top and win that battle. So as we're coming in, we've avoided our opponent getting the inside leg control. We've got a good collar tie, but we're also steering in that direction. So I'm starting to try and put him down onto his elbow. If I've got that wrist control and I can pull that out, I've taken away all of his bases on this side because I've got his leg pinned to the mat. I've got the leg pinned to the mat there, I've got control on the head and I'm starting to steer him in this direction so that I can fall straight into the position that I want to be in. And you can even hit that Josh Barnett body crush position from there, from that scaffold.
Go back and watch the video.
Go back and watch the instructional that we did on that. But essentially what we're looking at is maintaining good posture and balance from your point of view and starting to disrupt your opponent's balance.
Yeah, I think a thing as well is go into it with a plan. Like some roles, like listening to GSP, Joe Rogan, they talk about having playful rounds where that's where you're going to learn the most. But when you're having those rounds where you're kind of working your A game, you're working your competition game, have a plan, have a second plan, have a third plan, and always know how to divert those plans if it's not going your way. So if you can't get the centre line, adjust your passing style. If you can get to the knee cut, great, but then also be aware of the dangers from that stat pass and where it can lead to. And yeah, just go in there with intention of going into the guard that you want to pass as opposed to playing the guard that your opponent wants to pass. And that's going to be the running theme over the next couple of weeks, where we're going to be looking at different entries to different guards and getting passes from there, but all from this initiation. Another thing I want to point out as well, which I think is a great detail, is the way that Bond clinches with his collar tie on me. So if we come into it, he's not just taking hold of the head, he's using his forearm to control my shoulder. He's got the forearm controlling the shoulder, elbow pressure into my torso, and he's also using his shoulder to steer me away. So it's a full body movement as opposed to just taking hold of the clinch and just trying to sort of pull me down. He's got his whole forearm, his whole body leaning into me and driving me the way that he wants to go, which again transfers up to the standing aspect of the game as well.
And like we talked about in the last episode in this series, is that transitional period between managing the distance from the outside and making sure that you've got your correct distance in to stay safe, And it's kind of a bit of a spin on that green zone, red zone, where we talk about where we're all the way outside of danger, we're in our green zone, and then coming all the way into tight space and making sure that we're controlling the way that we want to be and being in our green zone again, rather than being in that middle red zone where your opponent's probably got more advantages than you, or if it's a 50-50 battle, that potential's there as well. But yeah, we're going to carry on with this theme and try and build on it. I know it's a bit more conceptual, we've not shown anything specific in terms of techniques, but what you'll find with this stuff is it's got a bigger carryover into multiple different techniques. If you can take the key things that we're talking about spacing and balance, that's going to have a big carryover to everything, not just one specific technique.
And it's all down to building that sensitivity. So you may not have the greatest balance at the start of your training journey, but over time you will learn where your weight is, where your weight sits, how to counteract any movements, where your balance lies, how to apply pressure. All of these are skills that you will develop the more reps you get and the more ability, the more varied bodies you also roll with. Like rolling with the lighter players, they're not going to be able to put you off balance as easy, but they may be able to get through the smaller gaps. Rolling with bigger players, they may be able to throw you around, so you have to know where your balance is and know where your tipping point is as well. And just quick call back to what you were saying about beginners sort of going in for their guard passing as well. Try to avoid falling into the trap of just bull rushing your opponent as well. And we've both seen it countless times where somebody comes in and they just try and throw to the wind and then jump into side control. Experienced players are going to see that from a mile off. Sometimes they'll let you do it, but they'll have their exit plan straight away, and you're going to end up in a worse position. Whereas if you would have just took your time, thought about it and had a process, or again referring back to one of our previous videos, have a system, you will have more success in that and you will build a greater library of moves.
So we kind of got like that. That's a good point, because that's something I was going to say there as well. There's like two different kind of styles of passing, isn't it? We've all seen it. You know, the more advanced player coming in cautiously, looking to control grips in that inside line and start steering like this. Great, that looks cool. There's a distinct difference between that and and then you get your back taken and you get armbarred or heel hooked or whatever it is. One of them is the Ashton Kutcher methodology of passing guard, and one of them is the Grapplers Academy.
It's got a couple of months you mentioned him.
It is. I thought I'd bring it back in just for a bit of a laugh at it. Let you decide which one's which. The first pass was the Ashton Kutcher passing system or the TGA passing system. You guys decide. You can let us know in the comments, as well as going checking out the previous video in the series as well. Hit us up on the Grapplers Academy on pretty much everything. You can Google that and find us everywhere for the podcasts, videos, all the stuff on YouTube. Coached by Si at the Bonafide PT. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.